Hi guys, this is Matt, once again reporting for the Sin Bin, and yesterday we got a very exciting day. It was the 2019 NHL Draft. So I thought that one day later we had time to digest it. We can just sit back and let's see what the experts say. I'm on NHL.com, and here are the first round results and analysis. So we're going to go by them pick by pick. First of all, we got Jack Hughes from USA. Now, was this a surprise for anyone? Not really. I think most mock drafts were predicting him to go first overall, and I even heard that Jack Hughes' dad is somehow related to Ray Shero and the Devils. I'm not too sure about the specifics of that, but kind of a no-brainer Jack Hughes going number one. Is he the best player in this draft? I think Capo Caco's a close second. I don't think he's necessarily going to be better than Jack Hughes, though, but I might be wrong. Only future will say it. So what does NHL.com say? They say he's the first player selected in the 2019 draft, duh, and he's also the best skater and the most dynamic playmaker. So that's interesting because throughout this draft, I don't think that skating was necessarily a strength for a lot of the players. But they say that Jack Hughes is definitely the best skater and really a dynamic player. He can think the game at top speed with or without the puck. Now, he's not overly big. He's 5'10" and 171 pounds. And he led his U.S. national team development program with 112 points in 50 games. And yes, he did indeed set the record. So I'm seeing a lot of comparisons here to Austin, to Patrick Kane. Let's see what NHL's.com's analysis says. So the Devils got the best center in the draft and immediately set themselves through the middle for the next decade with Nico Hischier, the number one pick in the 2017 NHL draft, and Hughes as their go-to player at the position. So we get the inevitable comparison to Nico Hischier. Do I think he's better than Nico Hischier, given that they're both number one overall picks? I think that the comparison is fair. Who do I think is better? I think it's also a no-brainer. It's Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes is going to be your number one franchise centerman for years to come. Nico, while being also a number one pick, he was from less of a strong draft. The 2017 draft is not going to go down in history as one of the stronger drafts. And while I really like Nico Hischier, I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a second line center behind Jack Hughes. Albeit a really good second line center, he's going to be elite, but nonetheless a second line center. So let's see what else they say. Hughes will likely earn a roster spot during training camp and play a top six role, averaging 15 to 20 minutes, which, by the way, 20 minutes for a forward is a lot, especially a rookie. I don't know if that's going to be true. And benefit for instruction of Devils coach John Hines, who is the NTDP coach. So, and then they talk about his fantasy projections. I'm not really going to go into fantasy yet. Now, I don't know how much of an immediate impact Jack Hughes is going to be. I think he's going to be really good, but that's going to show maybe 3/4 of the way through the season when he's kind of learning the ropes and he kind of got a hang of things. And the reason why it is that I think it's not going to be an immediate thing is obviously his size. 5'10", 100 and something pounds isn't the biggest player on the ice. And obviously, we're also going to compare him a lot to Capo Caco. Now, Capo Caco is a man. He has a man's body, but he's a teenager still in a man's body. Let's go ahead and see what they say about him. So, the left-handed shot combines playmaking and scoring ability, and is very good around the net in his end. Caco, who is 6'2" and 194, a considerable size advantage over the number one overall pick, who can play wing or center but is more comfortable on his off wing, has been compared to Colorado Avalanche's forward Mikko Rantanen. And I've seen a lot of forwards compared to him. I think it's kind of a trend going on here. But nonetheless, the 18-year-old scored 22 goals in 45 games, a record for his first-time draft-eligible player in Liga, Finland's top professional league. So let me just get into that before I move on. He plays in the Liga. Capo Caco plays with players who used to play in the NHL. some of which used to play in the NHL. It's a man's league, what I'm trying to say. It's a professional league. So while he didn't get, crazy amount of points or goals, 22 goals in 45 games, that's something because the Liga isn't the easiest league to play in. It's a men's league. And as a teenager, he didn't get run around. He did well. He did well. And he scored more points than Alexander Barkov and in 53 games. His 38 points were third on the single season list of players 18 behind Barkov. Oh, so my apologies, he's behind Barkov and Michael Granlund. So let's go ahead. It's really statistical. Let's get into the analysis. So Capo Caco should fill a top 6 roles for the Rangers this season. He is most dangerous on the wing, though he can play center. He's dangerous around the net and isn't afraid to get into the tough areas to generate scoring opportunities for his team. The thought of Caco alongside Chris Kreider and center Mika Zibanejad at some point in the future is a scary proposition for the team. I gotta admit, the Rangers are going to be a really good team, and this pick does nothing but solidify their strong crop of prospects. Now, as I was saying with Jack Hughes, how I said that he's not going to have an immediate impact, I think that the opposite is true for Capo Caco. Given the size that he is, I wouldn't be surprised if he, starts off in the league and does gangbusters to start with. Because 194 points, man, at a teenager, what the hell are they feeding this guy? I'm definitely a Capo Caco fan. Well, but now people are going to get ahead of themselves. They might see Capo have a better start to the season, and they're going to say, wow, he's the better pick, that he should have won first overall. I think that over time, Jack Hughes is going to prove to be the better player. But at the very beginning, at the very start, don't be surprised if Caco is beating him. So, next, we got Kirby Dach. And this was, for me at least, kind of a little bit of a surprise. I don't know why. I was kind of expecting them to go with that defenseman, Bowen Byram. But I think that if you're drafting by position, this is kind of a good pick because they're not the deepest team, the Chicago Blackhawks, up on center and up in the forwards. That being said, on defense, they have a lot of good prospects upcoming. They have Boquist, they have Baudin, they have Henry Yokoharu. I think that this is a good pick for them, Kirby Dach. He played in the Saskatoon of the WHL, and he considers himself more of a pass first than a shoot first forward. He was third for Saskatoon with 73 points, and second with 23 power play assists, and first with 1.18 points per game in 62 games. The right-handed shot is smart on both sides of the puck, deceptively fast, has good vision, and can beat opponents wide. Dach, at 6'4", 198, played center in Saskatoon, but won a Hlinka Gretzky Cup championship in Canada. So let's see the analysis here. The center skates well for a player his size. He may need one more season of junior hockey, but his size and skill could make him a solid second-line center behind Jonathan Toews as soon as next season. So they're hinting towards the fact that he might play hockey next season for the Chicago Blackhawks. I don't think this is necessarily the best move. As they alluded to, he's not the best skater. He does well for a player his size, but there's definitely some room for improvement. If I were the GM, I would send him back to junior, let him season his game, let him improve on his skating, and then we'll see maybe in 2 years or maybe even 3 years. I don't think that's out of the realm of abnormality. Then he could play for the team. Jonathan Toews had a great bounce back season this year, and I don't think that center there's an immediate hole to be filled on center. So he's probably going to play given his third overall pick pedigree. We saw it last year with Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and I said the same thing. Let the kid go back down. But he's considerably bigger than Jesperi. I still think that he should take one more year to season his game, but it's definitely a good pick. I think that centers, they don't grow on trees, number one centers. And yeah, good pick. So that defenseman I was talking about, Bowen Byram, he ends up going fourth by the Colorado Avalanche. And they say that he's 6'1", led the Western Hockey League defenseman in goals, 26, and game-winning goals, 9. So let's moving on. He has good awareness. He plays with an edge and likes to get up in the rush. He has a high-end two-way defenseman. He is a high-end two-way defenseman considered to be at his position in the draft and a threat in all three zones who is capable of making plays under duress and in traffic. NHL.com analysis: the Avalanche got the unquestioned best defenseman in the draft, with Cale Makar at 20 making an impact during the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, and Tyson Barrie, an established top pair defenseman. The Avalanche have the potential for a high-end group of defensemen to go with their elite forwards. So, as we talked about previously, there's kind of two schools of thought. There's the draft by position school of thought, and there's the draft the best player available. I think that for the Colorado Avalanche, they kind of drafted the best player available. I saw a lot of mock drafts putting him third overall, and they were saying he's the third best player in the draft behind Capo and Hughes, and the Colorado ended up having him at number four. Now, why do I say they ended up drafting the best player? I think that Colorado's immediate need, at the very least, is on the forwards position. Now, you might say, Matt, that's ridiculous. They got the best line in hockey. McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog. And while that's true, if you look past that line, if you look past that very, very top line, they don't have that much. I mean, Tyson Yost is taking a little bit longer to develop, and their forward depth is a little bit thin. So I kind of was sort of expecting them to take a forward, but taking a defenseman, Bowen Byram, for me kind of makes Tyson Barrie expendable. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tyson get traded. There's already been rumblings of him getting traded, and who knows, with Tyson Barrie, they might be able to get a forward asset that they needed. So I think this is a really good pick. And I agree with all the scouts saying that he's by far and away the best defenseman in this draft. And we're not going to see a defenseman for another couple of rounds here. But next we have the Los Angeles Kings, and they draft Alex Turcotte. So before reading about Alex Turcotte here, so what I knew about him was that his dad played in the NHL. I heard he, wasn't always the best mentally, but I can't really comment on that. I've never seen him play. I heard that as far as centers go, he's the best behind Hughes in this draft. I heard that he's kind of a Hughes light. He has all of Hughes's capabilities. The only things that he doesn't have is Hughes's speed, his skating. But other than that, he's kind of a light version of Hughes, which isn't a bad thing considering the circumstances. So Turcotte was sixth in scoring for the USA Hockey National Development Team under 18 teens this season with 62 points. Oops, excuse me. With 62 points in 37 games, but his average of 1.68 points per game was second to Jack Hughes' 2.24. He missed 22 games with a lower body injury. Turcotte, who will attend the University of Wisconsin, who is with Cole Caulfield, I believe, is an excellent scorer and playmaker. And let's just go ahead and see the analysis. The Kings need to get younger and more skilled, and Turcotte will help move along that process. As the Kings look toward a future without Anze Kopitar and Jeff Carter as their top two centers, Turcotte could be the player they build around for their future. Now, this draft certainly didn't strike me as a very, fast draft in terms, Kirby Dach, fast but not the fastest. Alex Turcotte, fast but not the fastest. And like they said in the analysis, you want to see the Kings add speed because Anze Kopitar isn't getting younger and he's getting slower. Jeff Carter isn't getting younger and he isn't getting faster either. So adding a player like him, I think that for them, they kind of need help on every position. Goalie, they need a new one. Defenseman, Drew Doughty needs help. And then forwards, they also need help there. So for me, just take the best pick available. And that's certainly what they did with Turcotte. Now we get to the big surprise. The Detroit Red Wings going ahead and drafting Moritz Seider. Now when Yzerman, or however you pronounce it, went up to the podium and he announced this, you could see the shock in the player's face. As a matter of fact, as I keep talking here, I'm going to try to pull it out. So he goes up, he announces that Maurice Schneider, again, I apologize for the pronunciation, he gets drafted by the Detroit Red Wings. And how on earth do you write this? Moritz Sider. Moritz, okay. So he gets drafted by the Detroit Red Wings, and in the prior draft rankings that I've seen, he was kind of mid 15s, kind of 15 to 20. So seeing him jump all the way to 6 is
I'm with the Red Wing
definitely
#1 draft pick,
something
sixth overall.
that is surprising. Here we see him in an interview at the 2019 draft. I'm trying to get his reaction because if you guys sat on TV, even he was completely shocked.
With the sixth pick in the draft, the Detroit Red Wings select from Mannheim of the DEL, Moritz Seider.
So there you have it. He's obviously clearly shocked. And, I don't think. I hate to say it, I don't know much about him. I think that I trust Yzerman a lot. He's proven to be really, really good when it comes to drafting players. If you have the pedigree of choosing a top one goalie at the 19th spot, if you have the pedigree of choosing Kucherov in the second round, if you have the pedigree of choosing Braden Point in the third or fourth or fifth or wherever he was chosen, I strangely trust his decision. And although I'm not that really high on Moritz, I trust Yzerman enough to think that this is going to be a good surprise for the Detroit Red Wings. So they say this is the first real surprise of the draft. Again, you could just hear the gasp in the audience. Seider proved himself against men playing in Germany's top league and was outstanding at the 2019 IIHF World Championship. The Red Wings have been looking to add young defensemen, and with Seider, they have a player with one of the bigger upsides in the 2019 draft class. So, the NHL.com analysis says that he has one of the bigger upsides. Now, I was watching the game on NBC, and from what I could take from Craig Button and Bob McKenzie, they were saying there was better players on the board. So, while I really trust Yzerman, I think there's a little bit of doubt still. Thinking, man, they could have taken, like a Dylan Cousins or, and another defenseman for that matter, Broberg. But only time will tell. And that's the fun about hockey. We get to try to predict the future now, but only time will tell. Next off, we got the Buffalo Sabres drafting Dylan Cousins from Lethbridge. And I believe he was the guy from Yukon. There's not too many players from Yukon out there. I didn't know there was anything other than potatoes up there. So nice to see someone come out of the Yukon. And they say he's a right-handed shot. Is hoping to become the third player from Whitehorse, Yukon, to play in the NHL, joining Peter Sturgeon and defenseman Brian Baltimore. He is an elite skater with speed, size, and a powerful shot. Now, you may notice that the word skill wasn't part of that. I heard from many that, he's gritty. He'll go to the net. He plays, a north-south game. He's fast. He has size. He's not going to overwhelm you with his skill, though. He doesn't have, like, the, for lack of a comparison, Johnny Gaudreau skill. He was second on Lethbridge with 84 points in 68 games. And, what? And Dad, 9 points? That's a little typo. They meant to say had 9 points for Canada at the 2019 World Under-18 Championship. So, pretty brief analysis here. While Jack Eichel, Cousins, and Casey Middlestat in the middle, the Sabres have a foundation that could be part of a Stanley Cup playoff team sooner rather than later. And let's just move on to the Oilers here. And I think that Oilers, I'm not sure who was on the board. Let's see, there was still Zegras, there was still Podolzin. I think that I think Podkolzin could have been a good fit for these Edmonton Oilers because we got McDavid. The thing that the Oilers struggle with the most is finding wingers for McDavid. They've tried, at some point last season, they tried Tri-Ratty. That didn't really work out. The whole Jesse Puljujarvi experiment is kind of going south to the point where he's asked for a trade. But when you really think about it, it's kind of the same thing as with the Los Angeles Kings. They need help everywhere. Goalie, defense, and wing. So Philip Broberg is definitely not a bad pick. They say He's a left shot defenseman, is a smooth skater with excellent acceleration, capable of controlling both ends of the ice. A two-way defenseman compete with good compete. Broberg, 6'3", 200 pounds, had 9 points, 2 goals, 7 assists, and 41 games in Sweden's second division. He had 6 points and 20 shots on goal in 7 games to help Sweden win the 2019 Under-18 Championship, and he was named the tournament's best defenseman. And you better bet your ass that that tournament is what raised his stock. And here we see him, and I mentioned it yesterday in my live stream. Is there such thing as a bad-looking Swede? And I'm not gay, by the way, but I'm just commenting. I don't think you have to be gay to say a guy's good looking. But I'm getting off topic. Let's see the analysis. They say the Oilers need to do a better job preventing goals, and Broberg will help with his outstanding skating and puck handling. His style in the offensive zone fits the way the modern game is played. So they go with a defenseman, and a Swedish defenseman. Let's hope he's not like their other Swedish defenseman, Jakob Larsson, who's proving with every day passing by that that was a horrible trade, trading him for Taylor Hall. Next up, we have Trevor Zegras, and I keep wanting to say Zebras for some reason, but indeed it is Zegras. He has good patience with the puck and a good on-ice vision. He is one of the hardest working players from the USA National Development Program Under-18 team. And that team, that's going to go down as one of the strongest teams. There was, Zegras, obviously Jack Hughes, there was Cole Caulfield, there was York. They have a lot of strong players, and they were talking about how it was kind of a family being on that team. And so we see another one, Zegras. I believe they had Turcotte. He's a left-handed shot. He was third on the NTDP with 87 points. And the Boston University recruit finds the seams when he knows to shoot and has deception and fearlessness in his game. He's not overly big, 6 foot, but only 173 pounds. You definitely want to see him add muscle. And I wouldn't be surprised if they sent him back down next year. I don't think he's going to play right off for the Ducks. They definitely don't need him right off. Zegras might be the most creative player in the draft. The Ducks need help at center with Ryan Getzlaf, 34-year-old, and Ryan Kessler's future uncertain following hip surgery on May 9th. Adding Zegras to a talented group of forward prospects, including Comtois, Sam Steele, and Troy Terry, has the potential to make the Ducks team a dangerous team. So again, I'm really pro-Canadian. I'm like Don Cherry, but the Americans in this draft were all world. I think there was 9 in the top 15, which is incredible. And Zegras is no exception. As you guys have certainly heard, the Ducks bought out Corey Perry's contract, so they're losing a forward. You definitely like to see them add another forward, although he's not going to have an impact for another couple of years, but still, I think it's a very good pick. Now we get to the intriguing one, Vasily Podkolzin. Now you might say, Matt, that's not how you pronounce his name. I was just mocking the Vancouver's guy who announced it. So as you see here, this is the draft, and he completely butchers the name.
The Vancouver Canucks draft from St. Petersburg of the KHL, Vasily Podkolzin.
You saw at some point he looked down at his paper and he forgot the name, and then he was saying it and it just came out absolutely butchered.
Vasily Podkolzin.
But, you got to feel for the guy. Speaking in front of all those people is kind of stressful. I would probably fuck up his name completely. I'd probably call him Jack Hughes by accident. But no, Vasily Podkolzin. He's a left-handed shot, 11 points in 5 games for Russia at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup in August, and 8 points in 6 games for Russia's under-19 team at the World Junior Hockey Championship. Podkolzin, who played 3 games for SKA St. Petersburg at the Continental Hockey League, and, the KHL is widely viewed to be the second or the third best league other than the NHL. So the transition to the NHL will be smoother than for some people playing in, for example, the OHL. Had a limited role but had 3 assists in 7 games to help Russia finish third. He is under contract in the KHL next 2 seasons. Now, the reason he had such a limited role is that I know a lot of Russian coaches, they don't really like to lean on their younger players. And given that he's only, 17, that would explain it. Analysis says the Canucks will have to wait at least 2 more seasons to get Podkolzin, or as that guy would call him, Podstoven, to North America, but he could be worth the wait. Scouts love his skill and his 200-foot game. He was captain on most of the teams he played on, and his performance at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup is more akin to his NHL potential. Now, I know that throughout the majority of this year, he was ranked number 3 by a lot of players. Players, by a lot of analysis. And his stock kind of dropped as the year went along. I heard that his end to the year wasn't all that great, but there's also the fact that he has signed with the KHL. So he's not going to be an immediate impact for any team. So if you're a team who you're struggling, you're trying to rebuild quickly, you're going to shy away from a player like Podkolzin because he's not going to be on your team for another, 2, 3 years. And that's why we saw him drop to 10th. Now, I think that at 10th, it's kind of a steal. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. What I'm trying to say is that if you look back at the video, I don't know if you guys managed to see it, but if you look here, it says his NHL potential is a top 6 winger. His comparable is Evander Kane. So, while Evander Kane is a good player, he's not like all-world top first lines winger like a Mitch Marner or I don't know, Patrick Laney or Tarasenko. He's kind of going to be in your top 6. He might fall to your second line. So, I think that steal is a little bit of a strong word, but every team needs players that can compete. And I definitely think that he's a player that can compete. He plays like a dog after a piece of prime rib. He's just a hungry dog when he plays. He's a bulldog. And they compared him to Evander Kane. I think that a good comparison is Alex Radulov. He's kind of going to be, get you to that 70-point mark. But every single game he's going to compete. He's going to play physical. He's a big kid. And, I like this for the Canucks. I think that they could have benefited to get a defenseman. But if you're going of the mentality of draft the best player, this is definitely a good pick. Next off, the Flyers traded the number 11 pick to the Arizona Coyotes for the number 14 and 45 pick. Excuse me. So, the Arizona Coyotes trading up, they're giving away a second round pick to trade up 3 spots. So, that's kind of a lot when you think about it to go up 3 spots. I hope that the Coyotes know what they're doing because they obviously really, really, really wanted this next player. They didn't want anyone ahead of them drafting him, stealing him away from them. And that player is Victor Storderstrom. He's a Swedish defenseman, as you can tell by the strum at the end of his name. And he was promoted to the Swedish Hockey League in November and improved his overall game. He's a creative right-shot defenseman who sees the ice well. Soderstrom had 7 points, 4 goals, 3 assists in 44 games, and he had 1 assist, a +2 rating, and 13 shots on goal in 4 games for Sweden at the World Under-18 Championship. So, similarly to what I said about Kako, the Swedish league is also a really hard league to play him. So, if he can stand out in that league, I think that says how good of a player he is. Now, from what I read about this player, I don't think that he has any weaknesses per se. There's nothing he does really wrong. But on the flip side of that coin, there's nothing that he does, outstandingly good. He doesn't have one really, really, really good skill asset. He's kind of level-headed in that sense. NHL.com says he's a mature, cerebral defenseman with a ton of skill. Soderstrom won't need much more time in the Swedish league before he's NHL ready. His offensive numbers weren't great playing against men in this SHL, but scouts are convinced that part of his game will come as he grows and becomes more confident. So, he's good defensively. He's not going to overwhelm you with his offensive stats, but who knows? And they have a good captain there, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's also of Swedish descent, so he's going to be a good mentor for Victor. So we're approaching the end here of the video. We got Matthew Boldy, and they say he has an excellent release, an accurate shot, and can manufacture scoring chances for himself and his line mates. The analysis says Boldy has a traditional build of a power forward with soft hands that allow him to make strong plays in tight spaces. 2 college seasons should be all he needs to be ready to step into the Wild's lineup and injection of skill up front. And once again, I think that the top, say picks 3 to 15 were very fluid. I've seen some sites rank this guy up to number 5. So seeing him in 12 is definitely a good pick for the Wild. I don't think he's going to overwhelm you with his skill, but he's definitely a good player, has good hands, and yeah, with a lot of their players aging, notably Zach Parise, he's going to be a fitting replacement right here. Another player from the U.S. National Team Development Program. So Matt Boldy going 12 to the Wild. Now we get to Spencer Knight. Spencer Knight was touted by many as being the goalie of this draft. We've seen comparisons to Carey Price. We've seen comparisons to Marty Brodeur. We've seen comparisons to many, many Hall of Famers. Now, I gotta be honest, when it comes to goalies, I think it's particularly hard to gauge their potential, to gauge how well their junior career translates over to their professional career. We've seen it in 2013 when the Canadians drafted, what's his name? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. That Zach Fucale. Yeah, so Zach Fucale was drafted in the second round by the Montreal Canadiens. Now, second round is really high for a goalie. You don't see many goalies drafted in the first round, so second round is considerably high. I remember Craig Button saying this is the best goalie at that age he's ever seen in his life. And obviously, if you've been following the Montreal Canadiens, Zach Fucale couldn't get into the NHL lineup. He couldn't even get into the AHL lineup. I think he's playing in the ECHL right now. So it's kind of hard to gauge a goalie's potential. But that being said, Spencer Knight definitely has great athleticism. He's definitely better to Zach Fucale. I wasn't trying to compare either of them, but he has a 913 save percentage and 2 shutouts. And for the Florida Panthers, with Luongo getting older, he's going to retire soon. They need a replacement. And the analysis says it's rare when a team and a player matches this well. But Knight is a potential franchise goalie. He's going to be a team that needs one. He is athletic and cerebral. What does that word mean, by the way, cerebral? It sounds like an area of the brain, the cerebral cortex. Anyway, rarely is out of position. And his coach at the NTDB, John Warblorski, I'm sorry, just butchered that, Puslovan, believes Knight has the mental makeup to thrive at the game's hardest position. Now, this applies to all of the players in this draft. When I say that, only time will tell how good they're going to be. But I think it applies to Spencer Knight the most. I'm really excited to see how he's going to end up as a player. I think that it's a good pick. I really like this player. And as I said, they needed a goalie. They went with a goalie. Number 14, and you guys have been hearing this a lot, we get another player from the U.S. Hockey National Team Development Program. And this one is Cam York. He's a left-handed defenseman. And, with the Flyers making all of these moves for defensemen, Matty Nishkinen, and now getting this young forward. And I believe they traded for another defenseman. Oh, yeah, Jacob Braun. Justin Braun, excuse me. That's kind of making Shane Gostisbehere expendable here, don't you guys think? I mean, they're just loaded on the left-handed side, and you got to think maybe they're going to trade it to someone to get a good forward to play with their top six. Now, York, he's 5'11", 172. Won't blow you away with his size, but we've seen that over the years, whether it be Alexander Romanov, whether it be Quinn Hughes, whether it be Adam Boqvist, teams aren't really afraid to draft a small defenseman. He's an elusive player with the puck. He can dominate with his decision making and is deceptive in the offensive zone. York committed to the University of Michigan starting season and had 11 points in 7 games to help the U.S. finish third at the 2019 Under-18 World Championship. He was named the player of the All-Star Tournament. Now, the Flyers need young defensemen, as the NHL analysis says, to add to their prospect pipeline, and were able to get one of the best in the draft, trading down with the Coyotes number 14. One attribute that stood out to the scouts was York's raised his game when the stakes were highest, and that's all you want in a player, right? You want Game 7, overtime, Stanley Cup final. You want your player to show up. you want him to do his best. And next off, we get the Montreal Canadiens drafting Cole Caulfield. And he's going to be our last one, and I think I'm going to end the video here. Now, you might be wondering, why am I not talking about Cole Caulfield? Why am I ending the video now? The reason why that is because I want to make a whole separate video on Cole. As I explained in a prior video, I am really high on this player. Forget that I'm a Canadiens fan. Um, I just really like this player, and I think that I have enough to say to make a whole video out of it. So, if you want to see that, please subscribe to my channel. Please check out the link. I'll probably put it down there. And this was kind of a long video. I hope you guys appreciated it. My throat is sore as hell. And without further ado, please like and subscribe. And my name is Matt, signing off.